that is a parts list there, my goodness. Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. We've got so many great builds this month for Boost My Build. Remember, this is a series where we take your PC part picker list, we tear them up, we put them back together, and massively boost up your performance. We've got builds that marketing has taken over people's brains and made them crush their own performance. We've got builds people are worried about getting scammed on. Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by Deepcool and their new AK series of air coolers. The AK400 is a sleek update of the 4 heat pipe tower design with a unique fin matrix and high performance fan that delivers excellent cooling at low noise levels. The AK620 is a dual tower, dual fan design that beats every other air cooler in recent third-party testing. Both come in a black and metal or all-white finish and look amazing in any build. If you need world-class cooling for an incredible price, check out the links for the AK400 and AK620 in the video description below. All right, we've got Owen Lee. Owen says he loves the series. It's been super helpful. Thank you so much. I'm glad it's been helpful to you. They're building their first PC ever. They personally don't care for any RGB. They just want performance, except they really love this Lee & Lee case, but they'd be willing to dump it if it gets them more performance. Mostly they want to use the PC for playing video games and schoolwork, but they do want to start getting into video editing on YouTube. Their original budget, $1,600, they're willing to go up to $1,750. Okay, Owen, let's see what you've got. Wow, that is a parts list there, my goodness. Okay, we'll jump into this long parts list. I see we got a lot of fans. $1,841, you're already considerably over your budget, almost $100 over your stretch budget, let alone the $1,600 you wanted to spend. So let's take a look. I see we've got a monitor in here. Let's start there. We got a 1080p monitor. We might be able to do 1440p here. I don't have a problem with this monitor, MSI Optics G241. Not as good in my opinion as the AOC 24G2, which you can actually get for $10 cheaper. So that may be an area we can save some money. And we've got a ton of fans, and I can see why, because we've got the Lee & Lee 011 Dynamic. Yes, this is, first of all, very expensive case, $190. That's kind of bonkers to me for this level. And I know a lot of people fall in love with this stuff, but that's how marketing takes over your brain. And anybody out there who thinks marketing doesn't affect them, you just don't know it. You're just not self-aware. We're all impacted by marketing. Otherwise, they wouldn't spend all this money doing it. So this is one area where I think we just need to be self-aware, saying, yeah, that's an awesome looking case. Can I afford that for my build? Is that going to hurt my performance right now? I think you already know in your head, yes, you're already hurting your performance. Now listen, if you find some extra cash and you don't mind spending a little extra, I don't have a problem with buying aesthetics. We all like aesthetics. We all want our PC to look super cool. It makes us feel better, makes us have pride in what we've accomplished there. But this is just one of those things where $189, now we're starting to get a little ridiculous. And then you've got just a ton of Arctic fans, and I know why. You need to populate that case with fans. I don't think it comes with any fans, to be honest. Now, these Arctic P12 fans are great. They're also relatively cheap. I will say you can get like the 5-pack of the ones that actually daisy chain together, the PWM plugs that daisy chain together. Makes just cable management way easier. If you're gonna get this many Arctic fans, look for the Arctic P12. Look for the ones with the daisy chain on them. But I see some big problems with the build itself. Let's go through this. Now look, technically this build all works together. I think as a first-time builder, you've done a pretty good job creating a rough draft of this thing. But let's go ahead and let's fix a couple of issues here. The first issue I see for you is that we're using a Ryzen 5 5600G and we've got a dedicated graphics card, which we'll get to in a moment. Look, the graphics card crisis as we knew it is over. Let's just, that's good. This is a good thing. Okay, so as we're building rigs now, we've got to leave behind the crisis mentality. And to me, especially at this budget level, that means leaving behind CPUs like this, because this is not the same architecture as a Ryzen 5600 or 5600X. It has half the amount of cache. It trades a lot of those features in order to get the integrated graphics, which we don't need and aren't going to help us even in video editing. Intel i5-12400 might, because it uses Intel QuickSync, which is an Intel technology in order to allow that integrated GPU to help you render frames with the dedicated GPU. But definitely this is not a CPU we want to buy anymore for dedicated graphics card units. The next thing I see is, man, this motherboard. And again, I feel the marketing taking over, and I get it. MSI and all the other ones, they wouldn't spend all this money marketing if it didn't work, right? And it sucks in first-time PC builders in a way that I think is particularly harsh, right? It just makes you guys spend so much more money than you have to. Look, there's no reason you need the MAG XI70 Tomahawk. This is a board, first of all, this board has never sold at its MSRP in the US. In Europe, it actually sold slightly below its MSRP, and it was a good recommendation over there at the time. But in the US, this board has never sold at MSRP. It's typically sold for almost $300, although I see the price now has come down to $229, $230. Again, not worth it. There's a B550 version of this board that's just as good. The only difference, remember, is that one of the M.2 slots on the X570 will be an additional PCIe Gen 4 one. B550 already has PCIe Gen 4, and we're not even using any PCIe Gen 4 drives. There's just no reason to get this, let alone two PCIe Gen 4 drives, to get this motherboard. Again, it's all just marketing. We've got to get a better motherboard. This memory, I just like, ugh. Team Group, why? I often push Team Group stuff. I think they sell good products at a good price point, but this is, I think, a little bit dirty, and I'm going to call them out a little bit here. Okay, so what they've done here is this is 8 gigabyte, 2x8 gigabyte DDR4 3200 CL22. That's insane. That is insanely loose timings. The way they've marketed this thing, I think is really a little dirty. Again, Team Group, I'm coming for you on this one. I like your other stuff, but I'm coming for you on this one. The problem I have with this is that they basically say they're calling it T-Create as though it's for creators. And no, this memory's for nobody. Nobody should be buying this memory. It's garbage silicon that they're basically pushing too fast, and that's why they've had to loosen the timings up so much on the XMP profile in order to get it to run at 3200. This is trash silicon, okay? This should have been discarded. It should have been a 2666 kit instead or something like that, but just not something that you should be buying. For the drives, again, I don't mind the Samsung 970 EVO, and then you've got kind of a more budget-oriented drive. I think that's fine. I'd probably try and get a single 2 terabyte drive instead. And then for the graphics card, we're just spending a lot of money on this particular RTX 3060. Listen, the NVIDIA graphics cards, the 3060s, for whatever reason, are just ridiculously priced. The 3060 Ti, not bad pricing compared to their AMD competitors. The 3060's nuts, absolutely nuts. People should not be buying the 3060 at the current price of about $500 to $550. It needs to come down. You can get an RX 6600, same performance as this, gaming-wise, for $315. Why would you pay this price for the RTX 3060 just to get RTX on there? Power supply is just, I get it, overkill. Overkill is better than underkill, but this is too much overkill. 850 watts, this is a great unit. It's a great unit, but we don't need to be spending $150 on a power supply for this unit. Overall, I just look at this build, I feel like we could get a lot more out of it with the money that we're spending. Okay, I call this more better gaming and video editing. Why? Because it's more better gaming and video editing. Let's start off with the CPU. Now, I initially set off to get you an i5-12600K. However, the combination of Ryzen CPUs and motherboards significantly cheaper still than the 12600K and a Z690 motherboard. That's unfortunate. I wish Intel would get a hold of their motherboard shenanigans with the overpriced Z690s and the kind of cruddy B660s. If they fixed that, they'd have AMD on the ropes a little bit right now, but they haven't. So we're going to go with the Ryzen 7 5700X, selling right now for $284. May even continue to go down. I actually think the CPU will probably hit $250 in the kind of near term, in the next 60 days. And we're going to marry that with a Gigabyte B660M Aorus Pro-P. This is a micro ATX motherboard. Don't worry, we're going to get you a case for this that I think you're really going to like. This is going to have everything that you need. It's going to have two M.2 slots. It's going to have all the rear panel connectivity that you want. And it's going to have, more than anything else, it's going to have ALC 1200 audio. So if you're using headphones, this has support for additional signal to noise ratio, boost in the front panel if you're plugging in those analog headphones when you're doing your video editing, something that I think is important. This is just going to set you up in the long run to be doing the kind of things that you want to be doing. And I just got you a relatively cheap Silicon Power DDR4 3200 CL16 memory kit. I got you 32 gigs of it. The reason I got you 32 gigs, you probably don't need that to start. You can get started with 16 gigs. It's not a big deal. But if you do decide to get heavily into video editing, I wanted to give you enough room to grow into much more complex projects. Now, if you decide that that's not for you, you can get a single kit of a 2x8 DDR4 3200 CL16, and then you can always buy a second kit of the same exact kit and put that in later if you want. But I figured let's go ahead and just drop it all in at once. For the drive, I just got you a prosumer level Gen 3 drive that's 2 terabytes. I don't want you to use both your M.2 slots with 1 terabyte drives. That way you can put it in one slot, and then if you want to add storage in the future, if you get really into video editing, you will need more storage, trust me. Then you can use that second M.2 slot to slide in another M.2. For the graphics card, we were able to jump up to an RTX 3060 Ti. Yes! 3060 Ti. Now, these graphics cards are selling at a very competitive price. The mid-tier, NVIDIA is really kind of killing it in the mid-tier. AMD's killing it on the low end, and NVIDIA's killing it in the mid-tier. So RTX 3060 Ti is right now far more competitive than the 6700 XT. And honestly, if you do get heavily into video editing and other things, I would lean towards NVIDIA cards for that. I wouldn't spend an extra buttload of money on it unless you're doing this professionally and getting paid money. But hey, for not that much more money, we're going to get you significantly more performance. And then to me, the piece de resistance. So I know you wanted that Lian Li case. That case is too expensive and it doesn't come with any fans. And then we had to buy all those fans and we ended up spending like a huge amount of our budget on that case. And I just thought that was a little nuts. So I went with the Lian Li 011 Air. So this is a mini ITX case. This will even fit an EATX motherboard the way that they've done this because the power supply actually goes in a compartment on the side. Really great case, and it's a good airflow case. Comes with 3 included all-white fans, so you don't need to add any additional fans to it. I think this is going to be, again, this is a case I like quite a bit. $119, much better than $189, and then having to buy all those fans for it. So I think we did a pretty good job here, and I think you're going to get a case that you're going to feel really good about without even adding any RGB elements to it. For the power supply, just with something that's a little bit more sane. I believe the XPG Pylon by ADATA, I believe this is a B tier rated unit. You can check that. It's definitely C or better, but I believe it's B. Right now, $60. The reason I do like this one is 650 watts. It comes with a second EPS connector, which is kind of nice. I don't remember if this particular B550, the Gigabyte Pro-P requires that, but some of them like that. So I always like to get it if I can. This has it. Modular unit. And then just to save $10, I did go with the AOC 24G2. It's just a superior panel to the MSI monitor. And for $10 less, why not? For the cooler, the Vetru V5 that you had probably could get the job done, but I just thought, let's go with something that we definitely know will get the job done, and it's going to look really nice in there. And that's the id Cooling SE226XT. Now, for some reason, PC Part Picker, they haven't put this in PC Part Picker yet, so I just added it in. But you can get this for $50 from Amazon. Really, really nice one. If you do want to add some RGB for $10 more, there's an RGB one, the ARGB. It's very, very nice. Definitely recommend this cooler. Also comes LGA 1700 if you decide eventually to go with a 12th gen Intel build instead of the Ryzen build, but I think this is a pretty good one. Overall, $1,736. That's right, $120 less than you were going to spend. We're going to get you far more performance, a better monitor, the case, really, really cool case. I think you're going to love that case. Memory that actually is running at the right speed, significant storage, both of them, both terabytes running at Gen 3 higher speeds, and we're going to get you a great motherboard with great audio and a much more capable CPU in the Ryzen 5700X. So I hope you feel like your build is boosted. All right, we've got Akiko X. This is for their cousin. They want to get started on their own gaming PC, but this person also wants to upgrade their PC. So they're going to offer to sell them their old PC, and they want to make sure they're not getting scammed. They're not going to scam them. His most demanding game is going to be Warzone. His budget is 900 USD. And of course, you want to go ahead and sell them your old PC. Let's take a look and see if this is a scam. I think this will also be helpful for people who are wondering, should they upgrade or should they just hold on to what they have? Okay, we've got a lot of parts here. I see that the whole list is $868. It looks like you're going to sell them an i7 8700, not a bad CPU. And you got the Hyper 212 Evo on there, perfectly good cooler. That's a locked i7 8700. Although you do have a Z370 motherboard, which is fine. It's kind of a cheaper, more budget Z370, nothing to really write home about, the MSI Gaming Plus. And then you've got 16 gigabytes of DDR4 2666 CL19, which is not good memory. And I see that we don't have an SSD here. We are operating off of a hard drive, which wasn't that uncommon a couple of years ago to still be building budget gaming PCs using a hard drive. So I'm not going to beat you up about that. But, you know, you don't have an SSD in this build. And the card we've got, pretty good price on the card. 1080, a GTX 1080 for $250 gets you kind of roughly the performance of an RX 6600, RTX 3060, maybe about 10% less than that. So that's actually a pretty good price for $250. Hard to beat that. That being said, those 10 series cards, they're definitely getting a little older. So you're not going to have warranty. He's not going to have warranty and all that kind of thing. Then we've got a Corsair 400C case. You didn't put a price in here, so I'm assuming we're just giving it to him. There's honestly nothing like really special about this case. It typically goes for about $100 right now. It's just kind of a standard case. And then for the PSU, we've got a CV450 bronze. I'm trying to remember where this ranks on the PSU Cultist list. This is definitely C tier, maybe even D tier. It doesn't give us a lot of room for upgradability on this particular build. And this is a 356 watt total draw. It's fine. I just feel like I'd be a little uncomfortable. I would have much rather seen us go to 500 watts here. Not that big a difference. Then we've got a monitor in here that I just absolutely would not recommend buying new. That's the Asus VS2488. It's basically a 60 hertz 1080p monitor. Don't buy 60 hertz 1080p monitors, especially for $150. Right now for $169, you can get the AOC 24G2. Check out our best gaming monitor guide. I'll also leave a link to that down in the video description if you want to check it out. Phenomenal 1080p gaming monitor for only $30 more. Only $20 more. So I would definitely go in that direction. And then we've got a keyboard, a mouse. These are fine. A decentish headset. Again, $868. Just went ahead and took out all the extraneous stuff. So it looks like your build about $614 is what you're coming up with based on your valuation of and PC Part Picker's valuation of these parts. I mean, it's hard to build something right now for $615, especially with a GTX 1080 level of performance to it. But let's do this. Let's see what we can do, and then we'll figure out whether or not you're scamming your cousin. Okay, I called this 1080p budget gaming. Why? Because that's what we're working on here. I came up with $765 new. Now, this is about the cheapest new build that I could put together where I feel really good about the performance on it. I went with the i3 12100F. This will actually, believe it or not, this is going to beat in a lot of performance metrics that CPU that you have, the i7-8700. That's how far a leap the 12th gen Intel was from previous generations. $107. It's hard to beat this CPU right now. And honestly, I would not consider any AMD CPU below the 5600 just for this reason, because of the i3 12100F. For this, we went with the Gigabyte B660M DS3H. Now, Jason, didn't you tell me that you should avoid this motherboard? Yes, for the i5 series, you should avoid it. It doesn't run the CPU at quite the full frequency. It's very close, but it's off by enough that it will hurt gaming performance. Motherboards should not hurt or help gaming performance. They should be neutral, always neutral. So if you see something like that, definitely avoid it. But for the i3 in testing, found that runs it at the full frequency, no problem. i3 obviously not as demanding, and it's going to save us about $20 on the motherboard, so I went that direction. I simply went with a cheap DDR4 3200 CL16 2x8 gigabyte kit for 16 gigabytes total, $55, Silicon power. Same with the storage, just went with the cheapest M.2 I could find, 512 gigs. Now, you probably could find a slightly cheaper SATA, but we're talking dollars here, and it's not worth it. I would go with an M.2 instead. For the graphics card, we did end up with something that's got a little bit more performance, about 10-12% more performance than that 1080, and it's brand new too. It'll have a warranty, it's brand new. That's the RX 6600. Really nice GPU. Right now, you can get this over at Newegg in the US for $315 after rebate. And yes, get used to rebates because the retailers bought so many of these cards when the prices were still inflated. They're trying to get rid of those cards, but it's not like anyone's going to come help them. They're going to have to sell them at a loss. So the only way a lot of these retailers are going to work out a deal is to go back to the manufacturers and say, hey, you got to come back and help us out by cutting in some rebates. That's how we're going to reduce prices. So get used to these rebates as the GPU market gets lower and lower. But this is a great card. You could also look at the RTX 3050. Though right now, $300 $315 same price. The 6600 just kind of wipes the floor with it if we're just talking about gaming. I just went with a cheap case here, the Antec NX200M. Only comes with one included fan, but for this build, that's really all you need. If you want, add in a couple of fans in the front, go right ahead. I don't really think it's necessary. You should get most of that through negative pressure in the case, and it's got kind of a nice mesh opening on it. And then for the PSU, just the cheapest unit I could find right now, which is a unit that's on sale, Cooler Master Master Watt. It's actually 650 watts, way more power than we absolutely need for this. We'll give you some options to upgrade the GPU in the future, obviously, though. And right now, it's super cheap at $50. Okay, so let's take a look. Are you scamming your cousin or not? So for our build, we came out with $766. Now, there are advantages of our build. It's faster in gaming, got a better gaming graphics card, and it's got an SSD. You're still working off a hard drive, which is kind of crazy in 2022. Ours came out $765, yours came out $614. So really it's about $150 difference. Ours is brand new, yours is used. Are you scamming your cousin? I don't scam. It might be a little bit of a harsh word. I think you're probably overcharging a little bit given the age of the system and the performance level and the fact that it doesn't have an SSD. Yeah, so I think you're definitely probably overcharging them a little bit on this. I'd probably come down a little bit more. Honestly though, I think your cousin should definitely look at building something new. Frankly, for you could probably just go ahead and upgrade that GTX 1080 to something much higher performance. Just upgrade the GPU and keep going with their current system, and your cousin could build something new. Just something to think about. Remember, if you got value of the video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. If you want to watch even more Boost My Build, I'll put the whole playlist up right here, including the episode last week that you missed. Check it out, and we'll catch you on the next one.